if you were king for a day, what are some of the initiatives that you would advocate for in support of the public sector?
Let's assume that I was at least maybe head of GSA, maybe not king, but let's assume that I could impact public sector through the GSA. I think there's probably 3 or 4 things I'd like to see done. One is I'd like to see agencies be required to earmark, especially those with errors and omissions in their GPC card program management. I would like to see those with findings to be encouraged or earmark those rebates that come in from the use of the GPC card. I would like to see them earmark those funds for to bring their programs into compliance with the risk management frameworks, both from a FSMA standpoint and from a OMB risk management standpoint. I guess the second thing is probably I'd like to see greater utilization of the card programs in general, and I think we should try to set some realistic goals for GPC utilization based on the annual number of transactions that could occur or should occur under the micro purchase threshold. The actual number of transactions that should occur under the micro purchase threshold is over 90% of the transactions. So the actual, purchases that occur in government agencies now is under $850. So let's face it, a huge number of transactions could be automated and settled through GPC processes. And we should set some goals for utilization. If people are not utilizing the card program and they're instead utilizing contract vehicles at a greater expense, they should be encouraged. And one of the ways to encourage them is to say, look, if your program's in compliance and you're utilizing the card, you should be able to have a higher micro purchase threshold. So instead of, say, a current $10,000, maybe those with outstanding FSMA scores and outstanding compliance reviews under their OMB guidelines, those agencies should be rewarded with a higher micro purchase threshold. Why not make them eligible, reward them for good performance with a higher GPC threshold? I think another thing that we could do is I think I'd like to work with GSA, the banks, and the merchant processors to simplify and speed the remittance of the industrial funding fees. Right now, vendors self-report on a quarterly basis what they sell through their contracts. And I think anytime that a transaction occurs through a vendor that's registered in SAM.gov and is a participating GSA vendor, they should be able to have those IFF fees immediately remitted through the merchant processor at the point of sale. We know every time somebody uses a government purchase card, we identify that card, we know that transaction occurred. Why not take those fees off the top, just like interchange fees and the merchant processor fees? Why shouldn't GSA also collect their fees immediately? That would transform the IFF from a costly process to a less expensive process and cut the cycle time from 90 days or more to 3 days or less. And then lastly, I've had the pleasure of touring a number of factories that produce the mandatory source programs like Ability One factories. They often are making office supplies, pens and paper and so forth. But the truth is they've really suffered over the last 20 years. And I think it's time for a Build Back Better transaction fee. And I think that transaction fee could be used to relaunch and resupport mandatory source programs. Right now, there's no money for reinvestment, retooling, retraining of mandatory source programs. Because the volume has decreased so dramatically over the years, there's just no private funding that can come in and really turn those mandatory source programs around. So I'd like to see a certain percentage of every transaction that occurs on a government purchase card to contribute to a Build Back Better program where we could invest in eco-friendly mandatory sources like charging stations and solar panels and other initiatives that benefit everybody and are well within the skills of our sight impaired and severely handicapped workforce.